Hey guys, tonight we are slipping back into a softer, slower world, into the warm hush of a 1960s morning, where the light comes through the curtains a little golden, a little forgiving, and the first thing you reach for is not a phone but a jar of cold cream and a good mirror. Picture the vanity table pushed up beneath the window, its surface crowded with small glass pots and gold tubes and a hairbrush worn smooth from 100 strokes a night. Picture the pink plastic rollers still clinging to your hair from the evening before, and the faint, sweet chemical drift of hairspray that never quite leaves the room. This was a world where getting ready was not a chore you rush through, but a small daily ceremony performed with patience and hope and a truly heroic amount of aquanet. Before we settle in, I want to say a real thank you to the viewer who suggested tonight's topic. You always send me the loveliest, strangest little corners of history to wander through, and honestly, this channel is shaped far more by you than by me. If you enjoy these quiet trips backward, you're welcome to like the video, and to subscribe if you would like to come along again, and I would love it if you left a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. And a small, gentle note. The channel is now on Spotify as well, so if you would rather drift off with only the sound of my voice, the link is waiting for you down in the description. Now go ahead and get comfortable. Dim the lights until the room goes soft. Switch on a fan for that low, steady hush that makes the whole world feel further away. Pull the blanket up, find the cool side of the pillow, and let your shoulders come down from your ears for the first time all day. And as you settle, let yourself wonder a little. What did a Saturday morning actually feel like in 1964, with the radio low and the rollers coming out one by one? What did the drugstore beauty aisle smell like back then, all powder and lacquer and possibility? How long did a woman really sit at her mirror before she felt ready to be seen? What did it feel like to tease your hair up toward the ceiling and believe, with your whole heart, that this was the very height of elegance? And just like that, it is 1963. The percolator is bubbling somewhere down the hall. A transistor radio is playing something with a gentle beat. The morning light is warming the vanity, and your reflection is waiting for you, patient and hopeful, ready to begin. Let us begin at the very top, quite literally, with your hair reaching for the sky. It is early evening, and you're seated before the mirror with a fine-tooth comb in one hand and a look of total concentration on your face. Section by section, you lift the hair and comb it backward toward the scalp again and again until it stands soft and full and impossibly tall. This is the beehive, and building one is less like styling and more like architecture. You work slowly, humming to yourself, coaxing the whole thing upward inch by inch, and somewhere in the back of your mind you already know that tomorrow morning you will have to do it all again. The comb moves in that small, patient, rasping rhythm, and the sound of it fills the quiet room, a soft, dry whisper repeated 100 times over. You have learned not to rush this part. Rush it, and the whole tower collapses in on itself before you have even left the house. So you take each section between two fingers, hold it taut toward the ceiling, and tease from the ends down toward the roots until the hair stands on its own, cloudy and weightless and full of trapped air. Your arms begin to ache somewhere around the fourth section, but you keep going, because a beehive left half finished is no beehive at all. On the vanity before you sits everything you need, laid out like the tools of a careful trade: the rat-tail comb for lifting and parting, the soft bristled brush for smoothing the outer layer once the inside has been built, a little dish of bobby pins, dark and glinting, and of course the can of hairspray standing tall and ready, the true keystone of the entire structure. You reach for the smoothing brush now and pass it gently over the surface, taming the wild, teased hair beneath into something sleek and rounded and deliberate, so that from the outside no one would ever guess at the tangled architecture holding it all aloft. Your mother did her hair this way, and her friends do theirs the same, and the women on the television screen wear towers grander still, so that the whole country seems to be reaching upward together. You think of the beauty shop downtown where the ladies sit in a row beneath the dryers, magazines open on their laps, their heads slowly setting into these very shapes. And you think of how a good beehive is a matter of quiet pride, a sign that a woman has taken her time, that she cares, that she has not simply let the day happen to her without a fight. The height matters. The height is the whole point. You tilt your head one way and then the other, judging the silhouette against the lamplight, adding a little more lift here, pressing down a stray wisp there. A great beehive should look effortless and it should look enormous, and those two things do not come easily together. It is a balance you have spent months learning, and even now some evenings it fights you, refusing to hold, listing gently to one side like a cake left too long in a warm kitchen. When at last it stands the way you want it, tall and smooth and round, you reach for the spray and close your eyes and give the whole thing a good long mist, turning slowly so nothing is missed. The fine droplets settle over your work and begin, almost at once, to set it hard. You can feel it happening, the softness turning firm beneath your fingertips, the cloud becoming a sculpture. By morning it will be solid enough to survive the walk to the store and back, solid enough that a gust of wind will only glance off it and move along. There is something almost tender in all this labour, in the sheer number of hours a woman gives over to a shape that will last a single day. It is the kind of care that is harder to find now, in a world of quick styles and quicker mornings. Back then the getting ready was half the pleasure of it. A slow and private hour with the radio playing low and nowhere else you had to be just yet. You set the can down and study the finished tower one last time, and you allow yourself a small, quiet smile of satisfaction. Tomorrow you will take it apart and brush it out and build it all over again from nothing. But that is tomorrow. Tonight, for a little while, you simply sit and admire the thing you have made, humming still, the lamp warm on your face, your hair reaching softly toward the ceiling like something hopeful. It is night time now, and the day is nearly done, but your beauty work is not. Before you can rest, there is the ritual of the rollers to attend to. You wind each damp section of hair around a pink plastic curler, or a bristled brush roller, or a strip of soft foam, and you pin it all carefully into place until your head feels like a small, tidy garden of hardware. Then you lie back against the pillow and try somehow to sleep. It is not comfortable. It was never comfortable. But you have long ago made your peace with the idea that beauty and rest simply do not sleep in the same bed. You begin at the crown and work outward, the way you were taught, dampening each section with a little water or a smoothing of setting lotion before rolling it snug against your scalp. The trick is in the tension. Too loose, and the curl falls out by lunchtime. Too tight, and you will not sleep a wink and will wake with a headache pressing behind your eyes. So you have learned the exact feel of it, the firm and even pull that holds the curl through the night without punishing you too badly for it. The bobby pins go in one by one, crossed over each roller to keep it from wandering while you sleep. You hold a few between your lips as you work, the way your mother always did, sliding them out one at a time. The mirror shows you a strange and comical sight, your whole head bristling with pink and blue cylinders, and you laugh a little at yourself because there is no dignity in this part, only the promise of tomorrow. When the last roller is set, you tie a soft scarf over the whole arrangement, both to hold it steady and to spare your pillowcase the worst of the hardware. Then comes the true test, the lying down. You lower your head slowly, searching for some angle, any angle, that does not press a plastic ridge directly into your skull. There is a way to do it. A careful settling onto one side with your neck held just so, and you find it the way you find it every night, by patient trial and quiet surrender. The rollers click faintly against one another when you turn. The scarf shifts. You stare up at the dark ceiling and think of the day just past and the day to come. And slowly, somehow, sleep begins to gather at the edges of you anyway. It is a shallow kind of rest, the kind that keeps one careful part of you awake and mindful of your own head. But it is rest all the same, and you have done this so many times that your body knows the way down into it. Every woman you know sleeps like this. Your friends, your sisters, your mother, all of them lying stiff and mindful on their pillows so that morning might find them curled and lovely. It is a shared and unspoken discomfort, a small nightly sacrifice made all across the neighbourhood at once, a whole town of women lying still beneath their scarves so that the day might begin beautifully. There is a gentleness in it too once you stop fighting it. The house is quiet, the lamp is off, the work of the day is finished, and all that remains is this final patient waiting, this trust that the setting will hold and the curls will keep. You breathe slowly. You let your hands go loose. The rollers press their familiar pattern into your scalp, and you have come, over the years, to find something almost comforting in that pressure, a reminder that you have... The smell is unmistakable, that sweet chemical sharpness that clings to the bathroom long after you've gone, that hangs in the powder room at every party and every church social and every office in the land. It gets into everything. It coats the mirror in a fine film that never quite wipes clean. It settles on the vanity and turns it faintly sticky beneath your jars and tubes. You have stopped noticing it mostly, the way you stop noticing any smell you live inside of, though a visitor might catch it at the door and know at once that a woman lives here who takes her hair seriously. There is a particular art to the whole thing that no one ever writes down, but every woman simply knows. Too little spray and the bouffant deflates by afternoon, sagging sadly around your ears. Too much and it goes hard and false, crackling audibly when you touch it, catching the light in a way that looks less like hair and more like spun glass. The goal is that perfect middle place, firm enough to hold its grand, rounded shape yet still from a distance, looking soft and natural, as though your hair simply grew this way on its own. You think of the great bouffants you have admired, on the singers and the actresses and the elegant women who seem to float through the world with their hair rising smooth and full above their calm faces. You think of the beauty shop, and the way the operator finishes every set with that same generous cloud of spray, sending each lady back out into the world sealed and shining and ready. It is a shared ritual, this lacquering, performed in 1,000 bathrooms every single morning, a whole nation of women holding their breath and pressing the button at once. And when you are done, when the last mist has settled and your hair stands firm and rounded and perfect, you open your eyes and look at yourself and feel a small, quiet pride. The helmet is in place. The day can begin. Nothing short of a real disaster will disturb this shape now, and even then you have a can in your purse for emergencies. It is a curious kind of freedom, this. A woman with her hair set hard and true does not have to think about it again for hours. She can walk in the wind, ride in a convertible with the top down, dance a little at a party, and her hair will simply stay, obedient and grand, exactly where she left it. That certainty was worth the sticky mirror and the sweet sharp air and the endless procession of cans. It bought a woman one less thing to worry over, and in a busy life, that was no small gift at all. It is Saturday afternoon, and your kitchen has quietly transformed into a salon. The Tony Home permanent box sits open on the counter, its little plastic rods scattered across a towel, and the unmistakable smell of the solution has already crept into every corner of the house. Your mother or your sister or your neighbour stands behind you, winding your hair onto the rods with careful fingers, and you sit very still, breathing through your mouth, waiting for the chemistry to do its work. It stings the eyes and it curls the nose, but by evening you will have curls that last for weeks, and that feels like a fair trade. The kitchen chair has been pulled out from the table and turned to face the window for the light, and a towel is draped over your shoulders like a barber's cape. Before you the box lies open with all its parts laid out in order, the pale plastic rods, the end papers, the little bottle of waving lotion, the neutralizer, the printed sheet of instructions that the two of you have read aloud together twice already just to be sure. This is a job that does not forgive carelessness, and so you both proceed slowly and with great seriousness, as though performing a small experiment in science. The winding takes the longest. Section by section your hair is combed out, wrapped in a thin paper at the tip, and rolled tight down to the scalp, each rod snapped closed to hold it fast. The fingers working through your hair are patient and familiar, and you sit obediently, tilting your head this way and that when asked, handing up rods and papers as they are needed. There is a closeness to this, a quiet intimacy in letting another woman tend to your head for the better part of an hour, and the two of you talk softly as you work about the neighbours and the week and what to make for supper. Then comes the lotion, and with it the smell that will define the whole afternoon. It is sharp and eggy and chemical, and it fills the kitchen and drifts down the hall and out through the screen door into the yard, so that anyone passing by will know at once what is happening inside. Your eyes water at the strength of it. You keep a folded cloth pressed near your face and breathe carefully, and you're warned, again, not to touch and not to fidget because the timing now is everything. So you wait. This is the hardest part, the sitting still while the solution does its slow and invisible work, softening the very structure of each strand so that it might be reshaped around the rod. You watch the clock on the wall, you listen to the tick of it, and the hum of the refrigerator, and the distant sound of children somewhere down the block. The minutes stretch long and strange, and you resist with all your strength the urge to scratch or shift or peek beneath a rod to see whether it is working yet. When the time is up at last, there is the rinsing, bent over the sink with the water running warm through the rods, and then the neutralizer, which sets the new curl and stops the chemistry cold. Only then, finally, come the rods themselves, unsnapped and unwound one by one, and with each one released a tight, fresh coil of hair springs free. You reach up and touch it, still damp and springy and altogether new, and you feel a flutter of nervous excitement, because a home permanent is always a small gamble and you never quite know how it will turn out until it is done. By evening your hair is dry and the curls have relaxed into something soft and full and lasting, and you turn before the mirror admiring them from every angle. They will hold for weeks now, through washings and settings and all the weather the season can throw at them, and that is the great prize of the whole endeavour, the reason a woman gives up an entire Saturday afternoon and fills her house with that unforgettable smell. There was thrift in it too, and pride. A permanent at the salon cost money that many households could not easily spare, and so the kitchen became the salon, and a friend or a sister became the operator, and the whole thing was done at home for a fraction of the price. It bound women together, this shared labour, this trading of favours across the neighbourhood, one weekend your hair, and the next weekend hers. And long after the smell had faded from the kitchen, the curls remained, and so did the afternoon spent together, tucked away like a small warm thing to remember. Now let us move to your lips, where something surprising is happening. For years the fashion was a bold and glossy red, but a new wind is blowing in from London, and suddenly the most modern mouth in the room is the palest one. You reach for a lipstick in a shade so light it is nearly white, frosted and cool and faintly shimmering, and you paint it on carefully. Against your darkened eyes it looks striking, otherworldly, thoroughly of the moment. You press your lips together, study the effect, and feel wonderfully, daringly new. It is a strange thing to do at first, to reach past the reliable reds your mother wore and choose instead this pale and frosty colour that seems almost to erase the lips rather than adorn them. But that is precisely the point. The whole face has shifted its balance now. The eyes have grown enormous and dramatic, ringed and lined and lashed, and so the mouth steps quietly back, going soft and pale and cool to let the eyes take the stage. It is look built on contrast, and once you understand that, the near-white lipstick begins to make a wonderful kind of sense. The tube itself feels modern in your hand, its colour visible through the little window, a shade with a name like frosted pink or icy peach, or the palest, most fashionable beige. You apply it slowly and evenly, filling in the shape of your mouth with that faint shimmering pallor, and you watch your face change in the mirror as you do. The lips recede, the eyes leap forward. Suddenly you look less like the pretty girls of a few years ago and more like the sharp young models in the magazines flown in from across the sea, cool and knowing and utterly of the moment. There is a chill to the colour, an almost frosted metallic sheen when the light catches it, and you turn your head to catch that shimmer and delight in it. This is not the warm, inviting red of the picture houses. This is something cooler and stranger and more modern, a colour that belongs to the new decade, to the young women stepping out in short, bright dresses and pale stockings, remaking the whole idea of what a lovely face should be. You know it will raise an eyebrow or two. Your mother will look at you and purse her own firmly red lips and wonder aloud whether you are feeling quite well, and one of the older ladies at church might murmur something about how girls these days seem to have forgotten how to wear a proper lipstick. But that murmur is half the pleasure of it. To wear the pale mod mouth is to announce gently but unmistakably that you belong to now, that the world is changing and you are changing with it, out ahead of the ones who cannot see it yet. The great models of the day wear it, those thin, bright young women with their enormous painted eyes and their impossibly cool expressions, and to borrow their look is to borrow a little of their fearlessness. You stud yourself again, the dark, dramatic eyes above and the soft, pale mouth below, and you see the balance of it, the daring, modern harmony, and you understand exactly why the whole young world is falling for this strange reversal all at once. Later, of course, the fashions will turn again, as fashions always do, and the pale mouth will come to look like a curiosity of its own particular moment, a small frosted flag planted in a single stretch of years. But right now, tonight, in this mirror, it feels like the very edge of the new. It feels like arriving somewhere before everyone else, like being just slightly ahead of the world, and there are few small pleasures a young woman treasures more than that. You cap the tube and set it down among your other treasures, and give your reflection one last look. The face that looks back is cool and modern, and just a little bit brave, and you carry that bravery out into the evening with you, your pale lips catching the light, feeling wonderfully, daringly new. Here is a small ritual that will surprise the modern listener. Your mascara does not come in a tube with a wand. It comes as a hard, dry little cake in a small red box, and to use it you must first wet the tiny brush. Sometimes you dip it in water, and sometimes, when you're in a hurry and no water is near, you simply lean in close to the mirror and spit, working the brush against the cake until it softens into something you can paint onto your lashes. It is not elegant, but it works, and everyone you know does exactly the same thing. The little box lives in your handbag and in your bathroom drawer and in the glove compartment of the car, small and flat and easily tucked anywhere. Inside sits the cake itself, a solid block of dark pigment gone hard and dry, and beside it the slim, stiff brush, its bristles worn soft from years of use. There's nothing automatic about it, nothing that comes ready to go. To use it at all, you must first coax it awake, must add the moisture that turns the dry cake into workable colour, and that small act of preparation is simply part of the bargain. When there is a glass of water at hand, you dip the brush and work it over the cake in small circles until it picks up enough pigment, watching for the colour to go dark and even and smooth. When there is not, well, a woman makes do. You lean close to the mirror, brush poised, and you spit lightly onto the bristles and rub them against the cake all the same, because a lash left unpainted is not an option, and the colour will not care in the least how it was moistened. It is a private little habit, faintly comical, entirely ordinary, and shared without a word of embarrassment by nearly every woman you know. Then comes the painting, and this too takes patience. You stroke the colour onto your lashes from root to tip, working the brush upward and outward, coating each lash and separating them as you go so they do not clump into dark spikes. Sometimes you catch a lash wrong and leave a smudge on your lid that must be cleaned away, and sometimes the colour goes on too thick and must be combed through. It is fussy work, close work, the kind that leaves you cross-eyed and blinking, and you build the depth of it up in layers, letting each one dry a little before adding the next. The eyes are everything in this decade, and so you take your time. Layer by layer the lashes darken and lengthen and grow bold, framing your eyes and drawing them wide and dramatic. Perhaps you reach for the false lashes afterward, or the painted lower lashes, building the whole grand architecture of the mod eye, and the cake mascara is the faithful foundation of it all, the daily dark base on which everything else is built. There is a thrift to it that suits the times. A single little box lasts and lasts, giving up its colour slowly, needing only water and patience to keep going long after a modern tube would have dried out and been thrown away. You do not waste it. You use it down to the very last, wetting and working and painting. And when at last the cake is spent, you simply buy another small red box and begin again. You think sometimes of how ordinary all this fuss once seemed, how no one thought a thing of leaning toward a mirror and moistening a brush by whatever means were near. It was simply how a woman did her lashes, one more small private task in the long ritual of getting ready, no stranger to her than tying a shoe. It is the kind of small forgotten habit that vanishes so completely that later folks can scarcely believe it was ever real at all. But it was real, and it worked, and it made the eyes bold and beautiful for a whole generation of women leaning close to their mirrors in the morning light. You blink slowly, checking your work, the colour dark and even and lovely, and you feel the small satisfaction of a task done properly with the humblest of tools. Then you cap the little box, tuck it back into its place, and move on to the next part of the face, your eyes already looking wide and wonderful. Let us linger on the eyes a moment longer, because this is where the decade truly played. Inspired by the great mod models of the day, you take a fine dark pencil and, with the steadiest hand you can manage, you paint tiny individual lashes beneath your lower lids, spaced out like little rays. You lean back to check your work. Up close it looks almost drawn, almost like a doll, but under the right light and from the right distance it looks like the very future of glamour. You blink slowly, delighted, feeling like the most fashionable girl in town. It is a delicate business, this. You brace your elbow against the vanity to steady your hand, tilt your chin up, and pull the skin gently taut beneath your eye so the surface is smooth. Then, with the very tip of the pencil, you draw each little lash on its own, a short dark stroke reaching down from the lash line, and then a small gap, and then another stroke, and another, until a neat row of painted rays fringes the lower lid. The trick is in the spacing and the evenness, in making them look like real lashes caught wide and dark rather than a wobbling line drawn by a nervous hand. You have practiced this many times, and still it demands your whole attention, your breath held, your tongue caught at the corner of your mouth in concentration. One slip and a lash lands crooked or too long, and you must wipe it clean and begin that section again. But when it goes well, when the little rays come out spaced and even and dark, the effect is remarkable. The eye seems suddenly enormous, wide and startled and lovely, the whites made brighter by the dark fringe framing them from below. This is the great mod look, the look of the thin, bright young models who stare out from the magazines with their doll eyes and their pale mouths and their expressions of cool boredom. You have studied those faces closely, have traced with your gaze exactly how the lower lashes are drawn, how far apart they sit, how they turn the whole face into something graphic and modern and new. And now, painting them on your own face in your own mirror, you feel a thrill of transformation, as though you're stepping into that world of London boutiques and swinging music and impossibly fashionable girls. Up close, of course, the illusion falters. Lean too near the mirror, and you can see plainly that these are drawn lines, little strokes of pencil rather than true lashes, and the effect tips over into something almost like a painted doll. But that is not how anyone is meant to see it. From across a room, in the soft, flattering light of an evening, the drawn lashes read as real, and the eyes above the pale mouth open wide and dramatic and utterly of the moment. You learn to judge your work not up close but at a step back. At the distance, the world will actually stand from you. There's a playfulness in the whole thing that feels new to beauty, a sense of the face as a canvas to be experimented upon rather than merely softened and improved. The women of a few years before painted to look like grown and glamorous ladies. The young women of now paint to look like something else altogether, wide-eyed and graphic and childlike yet knowing, breaking the old rules on purpose and laughing while they do it. To draw lashes where nature never put them is a small act of that same cheerful rebellion. You lean back once more and blink and study the finished eye from every angle, tilting your head, checking the light. The painted lashes hold. The look is complete, and you feel that particular delight, half vanity and half daring, of a girl who knows she is wearing the very latest thing, the thing the older ladies do not quite understand yet, the thing the magazines have only just begun to show. It will not last forever. Fashions in the face turn as surely as fashions in the hem, and one day these doll eyes will belong firmly to their moment, a charming curiosity of a particular few years. But tonight they are the future, and you wear the future proudly. Your eyes drawn wide and dark and modern, feeling like the most fashionable girl in town. Some mornings painted lashes are simply not enough. On those mornings you reach for the little case of false eyelashes and you learn the delicate art of applying them. You run a thin line of glue along the strip, wait for it to grow tacky, and then, holding your breath, you press it as close to your own lash line as you dare. Some women wear one pair, the boldest wear two, stacked one atop the other for a fringe so full it casts a shadow. Your eyes feel heavy and wonderful, and you flutter them experimentally, testing the marvellous new weight. The lashes live in their small flat case, curled and waiting on their little plastic tray, and lifting one out is a task in itself, done gently with the fingertips or a pair of tweezers so as not to bend or tear the delicate strip. You measure it first against your own eye, and if it is too long for the outer corner, you trim it carefully to fit, because a lash strip that overhangs the eye will only lift and peel by midday. Then comes the glue, run in a thin, careful line along the base, and then the weighting, the the small crucial pause while it grows tacky enough to grip. This waiting is the part the beginners always rush, and rushing it is the surest way to fail. Press the strip on too soon, while the glue is still wet and slick, and it will slide and shift and refuse to hold, and you will be left dabbing and cursing and starting over. So you count the seconds. You let the glue turn from shining to dull, from wet to tacky, and only then do you bring the lash toward your eye, tilting your chin down and your gaze up so you can see exactly where the strip will land. The pressing on demands a steady nerve. You hold the strip by its middle and lower it toward your own lash line, aiming to lay it just above your natural lashes, as close to the roots as you can manage without touching the tender lid. You settle the centre first, then press the inner corner, then the outer, tucking each end into place and holding it there while the glue takes its final grip. Your eye waters, your hand trembles a little, but you hold steady, and when at last you release it and blink, the lashes stay, sweeping and dark and full above your eye. One pair alone transforms a face. But the boldest young women, the ones out at the very front of fashion, do not stop at one. They lay a second strip atop the first, doubling the fringe, building it thick and heavy and dramatic until the lashes cast a real shadow on the cheek below. It is a look of pure theatrical daring, the eye framed and fringed until it dominates the whole face, and to wear it out into the world is to declare yourself unafraid of a little spectacle. The weight of them is a strange new sensation, a gentle heaviness on the lids that you feel with every blink. You flutter your eyes in the mirror, delighting in the way the long lashes sweep and shadow, in the way they change your whole expression, making your gaze slow and languid and glamorous. It takes a little getting used to, this weight, but you come to love it, come to feel almost undressed without it. The false lashes as much a part of your finished face as the lipstick and the set of your hair. There is patience woven all through this ritual, the measuring and the trimming and the waiting and the pressing, and there is artistry in it too, the judgment of exactly where a lash should sit to flatter your particular eye. It is not a thing one masters overnight, but you have practiced, and now your hands know the way of it, and the whole delicate procedure has become simply another step in the making of your morning face. When both eyes are done and the lashes are set and steady, you lean back and look at what you have made, and the transformation is complete. Your eyes are enormous now, sweeping and dark and unmistakably of the moment. You blink slowly once more, feeling the marvellous new weight, and you carry those wonderful heavy lashes out into the day, certain that every eye you meet will be drawn straight to your own. Now for colour, and the 1960s were not shy about it. You open your little palette and there they are, the pastels of the era, powder blue and mint green and lilac and soft turquoise, shimmering faintly in the light. You sweep a generous stroke of blue across the lid, right up to the brow, and then perhaps a touch of green in the corner for good measure. It is bright. It is bold. It is the colour of a summer sky landing softly on your eyelids. And when you look up into the mirror, you feel exactly as vivid as you had hoped. The little cakes of shadow sit in their case like a set of paints, each in its own small well, each with its own faint shimmer catching the vanity light. There is a whole sky of colour to choose from, the cool clear blue of a June morning, the fresh mint of new leaves, the soft violet of an evening just beginning, the bright dancing turquoise of the sea. You run your gaze over them and choose, and the choosing itself is a small pleasure, a matter of matching the colour to the dress, to the mood, to the particular kind of vivid you wish to be today. You take up the little applicator, the soft foam tip or the small brush, and you press it into the colour and then sweep it across your lid in a broad, confident stroke. There is no timidity in this era of eyeshadow, no faint whisper of colour meant to look like nothing at all. The colour goes on generous and bright and unmistakable. carried right up from the lash line to the brow bone, a wide wash of blue or green declaring itself plainly for all to see. This is colour meant to be noticed, colour as cheerful decoration, colour worn with the open confidence of a decade in love with the new. Perhaps you blend a second shade into the corner, a touch of green beside the blue, a bit of lilac at the inner edge, layering the colours the way the magazines suggest for a look of real drama. You smooth the edges softly so the colour fades rather than stops, and you check the balance of the two eyes, adding a little here and there until they match. The shimmer in the shadow catches the light as you move, giving the lids a faint pearly glow, so that even a small turn of the head sends a little gleam across your eyes. Against the pale, frosted mouth and the dark, dramatic lashes, the bright shadow completes the whole modern face. The balance of the decade struck at last. The eyes lead and the mouth follows, and the vivid wash of colour across the lid is the crowning stroke, the thing that turns a pretty face into a face that belongs unmistakably to now. You think of the young women you have seen out dancing, their eyes bright as jewels beneath their teased and lacquered hair, and you feel yourself joining their bright ranks. There is a joy in it that the softer, more careful beauty of other years never quite allowed. To paint your lids the colour of the sky is a cheerful, hopeful, almost childlike thing to do, a small daily insistence that beauty may be fun as well as flattering, playful as well as pretty. The whole young world seems to be reaching for brighter colours all at once, in its clothes and its cars and its music, and you reach right along with it, sweeping the summer sky across your eyes and grinning at the result. It will look, in later years, unmistakably of its time, this bright, bold colour worn so high and so generous. Fashions in the face grow softer and then bolder, and then softer again, turning always, and one day the sky-blue lid will read as a signature of these particular years, a small bright flag of the decade. But you are not thinking of later years. You are thinking of today, of the dress you will wear, and the places you will go, and the way your painted eyes will catch the light. You look up into the mirror one last time, and the colour is bright and even and lovely, exactly the vivid you had hoped for. You blink, and the shimmer gleams, and you feel wonderfully, cheerfully modern, ready to carry a little piece of the summer sky out into the world upon your eyes. Let us smooth the canvas now. You dampen a small sponge and reach for the pancake foundation, that dense, matte, buildable base that promised to erase every flaw in a single pass. You press it into the skin in even strokes, watching your complexion turn poreless and pale and smooth as fine china. The look of the moment is cool and luminous, almost moonlit, and you chase it faithfully, layer by careful layer, until the face in the glass looks less like a tired morning and more like a magazine cover waiting to happen. The foundation comes as a solid cake in its round compact, dense and matte, waiting to be woken by a little water. You wet the sponge and press it lightly to the cake, picking up the colour, and then you carry it to your face and begin, working in smooth, even strokes across the forehead and down the nose and out over the cheeks. It goes on cool and slightly damp, and as it dries, it settles into a flawless matte finish, dense enough to cover any redness, any shadow, any small imperfection you would rather the world did not see. You build it in layers, the way you have learned to. A first thin pass over the whole face, and then a little more where more is needed, around the nose, beneath the eyes, over any small mark you wish to hide. The beauty of the pancake is exactly this, its buildable coverage, its willingness to go as thick as you dare to take it, erasing everything beneath until the skin looks perfectly even and smooth. You blend the edges carefully at the jaw and the hairline so there is no telltale line where the colour stops, No border between the painted face and the true neck below. The finish you're chasing is a particular one, cool and pale and matte, a porcelain complexion like the fine smooth surface of good china. This is not the warm, sun-kissed glow of other years. The mod face is a pale face, luminous and moonlit, a clear, untroubled canvas on which the bright eyes and the frosted mouth may play. And so you keep the base cool and light, sometimes even a touch paler than your own skin, the better to set off the drama you will paint above and below. There is a small magic in watching it happen, in seeing a tired, ordinary morning face transform beneath your sponge into something poreless and even and bright. The shadows under your eyes vanish, the uneven patches smooth away. The whole complexion turns clear and calm and camera-ready, and you feel the day's confidence gather in you as the face in the glass grows steadily lovelier. A good base, you have long understood, is the foundation of everything, the smooth, true canvas without which no amount of colour could ever quite succeed. You dust a little powder over the whole thing when you're done, to set it and to deepen the matte, pressing it in gently with a soft puff so the finish will last through the hours ahead. The skin goes velvety and smooth beneath your fingertips, cool and even and flawless, and you turn your face this way and that in the light, checking that the coverage is smooth and the edges are blended and no line betrays where the paint begins. It is a fair amount of work, this careful building of the canvas, and it asks patience and a good eye and the willingness to add another layer when the first is not quite enough. But the reward is a face that looks for a few precious hours, entirely untroubled, poreless and pale and smooth as china, ready for whatever the day may bring. You think of the flawless faces in the magazines, and you understand now the labour hidden behind them, the layers and the blending and the powder, the quiet effort that makes such effortlessness possible. When at last it is finished, the canvas smooth and cool and luminous, you allow yourself a small, satisfied breath. The hardest and most patient part of the face is done. Now come the pleasures, the bright colour for the eyes, and the pale gleam for the lips, all of it to be painted upon this smooth, pale ground. You look at yourself once more, the tired morning wiped clean away, and see waiting there a face that looks just as you had hoped, like a magazine cover about to happen. Here is a small vanity that felt like a secret weapon. With a sharp, dark pencil you lean in close, and place a tiny dot just so, high on the cheek or at the corner of the mouth, a little painted beauty mark in the manner of the great screen stars. It is a small thing, almost nothing at all, but it feels like the final punctuation on your whole face. You study it from several angles, making sure it sits exactly where it flatters, and then you smile, quietly pleased with your own cleverness. The placement is everything, and you have thought about it more than you would ever admit to anyone. There is a spot high on the cheekbone that lends a certain elegance, and a spot just beside the upper lip that suggests something knowing and a little glamorous, and you have studied the faces of your favourite stars to learn exactly where each of them wears theirs. A beauty mark in the wrong place looks like nothing more than a smudge. A beauty mark in the right place looks like fate, like a small perfect accident that nature arranged just to flatter you. So you take your time. You lean toward the mirror until your nose nearly touches the glass, and you hold the sharpened pencil poised above your skin, and you consider. A little higher, perhaps. A little more toward the corner. You press the tip down gently and make the smallest dark point, then lean back to judge it, tilting your face into the light. If it is not quite right, you wipe it away with a touch of cream and try again, because a thing this small must be exactly perfect or not attempted at all. When it lands where you want it, the effect is out of all proportion to its size. That one tiny dark point seems to draw the whole face together, to lend it a finish and a polish it did not have a moment before. It is the sort of detail no one will consciously notice, and everyone will somehow feel. The small, deliberate mark of a woman who has thought about every inch of her appearance and left nothing to chance. You feel almost as though you're borrowing a little of the glamour of the screen, wearing your own small piece of Hollywood high upon your cheek. There is a playful deception in it too, a gentle little trick played on the world. Everyone knows, of course, that these marks are drawn, that half the lovely faces in the magazines wear their beauty spots by the grace of a pencil rather than the grace of birth, and yet no one says so, and no one minds, because the pretending is part of the fun. To draw a beauty mark is to step into a small shared game of glamour, an agreement that a woman may improve upon nature a little, and everyone will politely pretend she was simply born this way. You think of the great stars who made the beauty mark famous, the ones whose single dark spot became as much a part of their face as their smile, so that you could not imagine them without it. You're not so grand as all that, of course. But for a moment, leaning toward your own mirror in your own quiet room, you feel a kinship with them, a sense that beauty is a thing you two may compose and arrange and perfect, one small deliberate mark at a time. It is the kind of tiny care that a busier, faster world has largely forgotten. This pausing over a single point of pencil, this fussing over one small dot as though it mattered enormously. And in its way it did matter, because it was never really about the mark at all. It was about the taking of time, the giving of attention, the small daily insistence that a woman's face was worth this much thought, and this much trouble. You cap the pencil and set it down and look at your finished face, the eyes bright, the mouth pale, the skin smooth, and there, high on the cheek, the small dark point that ties it all together. You smile at your own reflection, quietly pleased with your cleverness, and you carry your little secret weapon out into the day, certain that it flatters you and delighted that no one will ever quite know why. Let us not forget the brows, which had their own particular fashion. Tweezers in hand, you pluck and shape and thin the arch down to a fine, delicate line, and then, where nature has been removed, you draw the brow back in with a pencil. It takes patience and a steady wrist, and the willingness to start over when one side refuses to match the other. When at last they agree, you set down the pencil with a sigh of relief, your face framed by two neat, hopeful arches that took far longer to make than anyone would ever guess. The plucking comes first, and it is not a task for the impatient or the tender. You catch each stray hair between the little metal jaws and pull, quick and clean, and you feel the small sharp sting of it, and your eyes water in protest. And still you go on, thinning the brow down and down toward the fashionable fine line. There is an art to knowing when to stop, to leaving just enough and no more, and many a woman has plucked too far in her enthusiasm and been left with almost nothing at all, dependent entirely on the pencil to draw a brow back from thin air. Once the shaping is done, you brush the brow smooth and consider what remains, and then you take up the pencil to complete the work. This is the delicate part, the drawing on of what nature no longer provides, and it demands a steady hand and a careful eye. You lay the colour on in fine short strokes, following the line of the arch, extending it a little at the tail, filling the gaps where the tweezers have been too thorough. Too heavy a hand and the brow looks hard and false and startled. Too light, and it fades to nothing under the bright bathroom light. The great trial, always, is making the two of them match. You draw one, and it comes out rather well, a clean, hopeful arch just where you want it. And then you draw the other, and somehow it will not agree, sitting a little higher or a little flatter, or curving just differently enough to give your whole face a puzzled, lopsided look. So you wipe and adjust and try again, glancing back and forth between the two, and you have learned that a woman may spend a truly astonishing stretch of her morning simply persuading her own two eyebrows to become sisters. When at last they match, when the two neat arches finally agree with one another, the relief is real and the transformation is remarkable. The brows frame the whole face, lending it expression and structure, and a certain finished elegance, and the great bright dramatic eyes beneath them look all the more striking for the clean line above. It is astonishing, really, how much depends on these two small arches, how a face can look tired or surprised or severe or lovely, depending entirely on the shape of them. You think of the elegant women you admire, the film stars and the models and the smart ladies about town, and you notice now how their brows are always immaculate, always shaped and drawn and perfect, never left wild and natural as a man might leave his. It is one of those small labours of womanhood that goes entirely unremarked, that no one thinks to praise because no one is meant to know it happened at all. The whole point is that it should look effortless, as though you simply woke with two flawless arches already in place. There is a quiet vanity in it, and a quiet discipline too, this daily reshaping of the face's frame. It hurts a little, and it takes far longer than anyone would guess, and it must be done again tomorrow and the day after and every day for years to come, and yet you do it gladly, or if not gladly then faithfully, because a woman's brows are among the first things the world reads in her face, and you wish the world to read their care and elegance and a life kept firmly in hand. You set down the pencil at last with a small sigh of satisfaction, the two arches finally in accord, and you study the framed and finished look of your face. It took patience, and it took a steady wrist, and it took starting over more than once, but the result is worth it. Two neat, hopeful arches lending your whole face its quiet grace. And no one, you think with a small private smile, will ever guess how long it took. Now, a little warmth for the cheeks. You dip into the rouge, that vivid pot of pink or coral or peach, and you apply it high and round and generous, blooming across the apples of your cheeks like two small sunsets. The instructions in your magazine promised a healthy glow, though the effect is often rather more theatrical than that. Still, you love it. You love the way it lifts your whole face, the way it makes you look flushed and lively and ready for the day, even on the mornings when you feel like anything but. The rouge comes in its little pot or its small round compact, a bright bloom of colour waiting to be woken, and you touch your fingertip or a small soft brush to it and pick up the pigment. Then you smile into the mirror, the way the magazines all instruct, so that the apples of your cheeks stand round and full, and you press the colour right there at the very highest point, blending it up along the cheekbone and back toward the ear. The trick, they say, is to keep it high and to blend the edges soft, so the colour seems to bloom from within rather than sit upon the surface. The shades of the decade run bright and cheerful, clear pinks and warm corals and sunny peaches, colours with none of the subtlety that a later age might prefer. You apply it generous and unafraid, the way a woman does when the fashion favours a face full of colour, and the result is a pair of rosy cheeks that no one could possibly miss. Whether it looks quite like the natural glow the magazine promised is another matter entirely. More often it looks frankly, cheerfully painted, two round blooms of colour announcing themselves plainly, and somehow that is exactly the charm of it. You blend and check and blend again, softening the edges where the colour meets the pale foundation, making sure the two cheeks match one another in height and in warmth. It is easy to go too far, to end with cheeks so vivid you look feverish or startled, and so you build it up gradually, adding a touch at a time and standing back to judge. When it is right, When the colour sits high and round and even, it lifts the whole face wonderfully, drawing everything upward, lending a look of youth and health and cheerful vitality. There is real magic in what a little colour can do for a tired face. On the mornings when you've slept badly, when the mirror shows you someone pale and drawn and weary, the rouge is a small daily miracle, painting warmth and life back into your cheeks in a matter of moments. You look flushed and lively and ready, even when you feel like anything but, and there is a quiet comfort in that, in knowing you may summon the appearance of vitality even on the days it declines to arrive on its own. You think of your mother patting colour into her cheeks before she answered the door, of the ladies at church with their bright rosy faces, of the whole cheerful convention of a decade that believed a woman's face ought to glow. It was a shared idea of beauty, this warm and rounded colour, worn by nearly every woman you knew, so that a pale, unpainted cheek came almost to look like a face left half-finished, a canvas someone had forgotten to complete. The look would soften in later years, the bright bold blooms giving way to subtler washes and more natural contours, until the frank cheerful rouge of these years came to seem a little theatrical, a little quaint, a small signature of its particular moment. But you're not thinking of later years, you're thinking of this morning, of the colour blooming warm and high on your cheeks, of the way it lifts your whole face and readies you for whatever the day may hold. You set the rouge down and turn your face in the light, admiring the two small sunsets high on your cheeks, and you feel the cheerful confidence they lend you. Whatever kind of morning it has been, whatever kind of night preceded it, your face now looks flushed and lively and glad to be awake, and you carry that borrowed vitality out into the day, grateful for the small daily gift of a little bright colour. Let us talk about the hairstyle that swung across every television screen in the land. The flip was crisp and cheerful and endlessly charming, the hair falling smooth and full to the shoulders before turning up sharply at the ends in two neat little wings. Achieving it meant rollers and patience and a good deal of back combing at the crown, and keeping it meant, of course, more hairspray. But when it was done well, it bounced when you walked, and it caught the light, and it made you feel like the heroine of your own bright modern story. The flip was everywhere in those years, on the singers and the actresses and the bright young women reading the news, so that to wear it was to feel yourself part of the shining modern world. It had a particular cheerful energy to it, a bounce and a swing that the grander styles lacked, and it suited the younger woman especially, the one stepping out into a decade that seemed to be moving faster and brighter with every passing season. You had studied it on the screen, the way the ends turned up so crisply, and you had determined to make it your own. Achieving it was a matter of patience and rollers, as so much of beauty was. You set the hair on large rollers, turning the ends outward so they would dry with that upward curl, and you waited beneath the dryer or slept the long uncomfortable night for the set to take. At the crown you teased and back-combed to give the style its height and fullness, then smoothed the top layer over so the roughness beneath did not show. It was the same architecture as always, height above and smoothness over it, but finished at the ends with that distinctive upward flip that gave the whole style its name. The flip itself, those two neat little wings turning up at the shoulders, was the crowning touch, and getting it just right took practice. Both sides had to match, turning up at the same angle, curling to the same crisp point, and a flip that flipped on one side and drooped on the other was no flip at all. So you worked at it, coaxing the ends with a brush and a little spray, curling them under your fingers until they stood out from your shoulders in two cheerful matching wings, framing your face and swinging when you moved, and then, of course, the spray, to hold the whole bright, cheerful thing in place against the day. You misted the crown and the sides, and especially those upturned ends, sealing the flip so it would keep its crisp shape through the hours ahead. When it was done well, the style held beautifully, bouncing when you walked, catching the light as you turned your head, moving with a lively energy that made you feel young and bright and entirely of the moment. There was a joy in a good flip that the heavier styles never quite offered. It moved, it bounced, it swung a little as you walked, light and cheerful, so that the very way you carried yourself seemed to lift. You felt wearing it, like one of the bright modern young women you had watched on the screen, the heroine of some cheerful story of your own, stepping out into a world that seemed full of possibility and motion and light. You think of all the faces you have seen wearing it, the whole cheerful army of young women with their hair flipping up at the shoulders, and you understand its charm, its perfect suitedness to a bright and hopeful moment. It was youth itself, that style, all bounce and swing and cheerful energy, and to wear it was to feel yourself entirely young, entirely modern, entirely caught up in the forward motion of the times. You turn once more before the mirror, watching the ends swing and settle, the two neat wings framing your face, and you feel that lift, that bright, cheerful energy gather in you. Whatever the day holds, you will meet it with your hair bouncing and catching the light, feeling like the heroine of your own bright modern story, and that, you think, is no small way to begin a day. Now here is a moment of true courage. For years the fashion had been more hair, always more, teased and piled and sprayed. And then a handful of daring young women walked into the salon and asked for almost all of it to be taken off. The pixie cut was short and gamine and shockingly bare, and to choose it was to make a statement heard across the whole neighbourhood. You sit in the chair, watch the long locks fall to the floor, and feel your head grow lighter and your heart beat faster, wondering what on earth your mother will say. It is difficult now to understand quite how daring it was. For years and years the whole idea of a woman's beauty had rested upon her hair, upon the length and the fullness of it, upon the towers and flips and bouffants that took such labour to build. Long hair was womanly hair, and a woman's crowning glory, and to cut it off was very nearly to declare oneself a different kind of woman altogether. And so when the young models across the sea began to appear with their hair cropped short and boyish, it landed like a small shock, a thrilling little scandal of the scissors. You've thought about it for weeks before you finally do it. You've looked at the pictures in the magazines, at those thin, bright modern girls with their enormous eyes made all the larger by the boldness of their short hair, and you have felt something stir in you, some longing to be that free and that new. And so at last you make the appointment, and you sit down in the chair, and when the operator asks if you're quite sure, you take a breath and say yes before you can lose your nerve. Then the scissors begin, and there is no going back. The long locks fall away, drifting down to the floor around the chair, and with each one gone you feel your head grow lighter, freer, stranger. It is a curious sensation, this shedding half loss and half liberation, and your heart beats faster as more and more of it falls away, and the face in the mirror grows barer and more startling by the moment. You watch, half thrilled and half terrified, as a whole new person begins to emerge. When it is finished, when the last of it has been shaped and trimmed and smoothed, you look at yourself and hardly know the face looking back. Your eyes seem enormous now, unframed by all that hair, wide and bright and dominating your whole face. Your neck is bare, your head feels weightless. You turn it this way and that, marvelling at the lightness, at how quick and simple and free it suddenly is, at how much of your life had been given over to the endless labour of long hair without your ever quite noticing. And then, of course, the thought of home, and of what your mother will say, and of the eyes that will follow you down the street. For to wear the pixie is to be noticed, to be remarked upon, to become for a little while the subject of the neighbourhood's quiet talk. Some will admire you, and some will disapprove, and some will simply stare, and you will need a certain courage to meet all of it with your chin up and your bare new head held high. But that courage is the whole point, and the whole reward. To cut your hair short in those years was to claim something, to step out of one idea of womanhood and into another, freer and bolder and more modern. It was youth declaring its independence, refusing the long labour its mothers had accepted, choosing lightness and ease and a look that belonged entirely to the new. And there is a thrill in that claiming that no bouffant, however grand, could ever quite provide. You rise from the chair and pay and step out into the daylight, feeling the air on the back of your bare neck, feeling lighter than you have felt in years. Your heart is still beating fast. You do not yet know what your mother will say, or the neighbours, or the whole watching world. But you know how you feel, which is free and modern and daring, and that you decide is worth every long lock lying on the salon floor behind you. Let us open the drawer where the extra hair lives. On the busy mornings, or the special evenings, or simply the days when your own hair refuses to cooperate, you have a marvellous shortcut waiting. The wig, the fall, the hairpiece, each one perched patiently on its own foam form. You pin your real hair flat, settle the piece into place, and just like that you have a whole new head of hair, glossy and full and utterly untroubled by weather. It felt a little like magic, and a little like cheating, and entirely gloriously convenient. The drawer, or the closet shelf, or the row of foam heads along the dresser, holds a small wardrobe of hair, each piece for its own occasion. There is the full wig for the mornings when there is simply no time, and the full for adding length and fullness at the back, and the little hairpiece for building height at the crown without an hour of teasing. Each sits waiting on its form, brushed and ready, holding its shape faithfully so that whenever you need it, a whole new head of hair is yours in a matter of minutes. There is a real art to wearing them well, of course. You pin your own hair flat against your head first, winding it close and securing it so no stray lock escapes to betray you. Then you settle the piece over it, easing it into place, adjusting it at the hairline until it sits just so, blending its edges with your own hair where the two must meet. Done carelessly, a wig announces itself at once sitting too high or slipping to one side. Done with care, it looks entirely your own, and no one need ever know the truth of it. The convenience of it is a genuine marvel. On the morning when you have overslept, when there is no time for rollers or teasing or spray, you may simply settle a wig into place and step out the door, looking freshly and elaborately coiffed, as though you had risen at dawn to prepare. On the evening of a party, when you wish to look grander than your everyday hair allows, you may reach for a fuller piece and transform yourself in minutes into something splendid. And through it all your own hair rests, spared the endless labour, tucked safely away beneath. Best of all, perhaps, is how the extra hair defies the weather that torments your own. Rain that would collapse your careful set, wind that would undo an hour's work, humidity that would flatten your bouffant to nothing, all of it glances harmlessly off the wig, which holds its glossy shape through anything the sky can send. There is a wonderful freedom in that, in stepping out into a damp grey morning knowing your hair at least will not betray you, will keep its full and perfect shape no matter what. It felt, when you first tried it, a little like cheating. This borrowing of ready-made loveliness, this skipping of all the honest labour other women poured into their hair. But you have made your peace with that. Beauty, you have decided, is allowed its shortcuts, And there is no shame in a little cleverness, in saving yourself an hour of teasing when a foam head has held the shape for you overnight. The world sees only the result after all, and the result is glossy and full and lovely. The great and glamorous women wore them too, you knew. The film stars and the singers with their ever-changing hair, switching styles and colours from one day to the next in a way that no natural head could ever manage. To reach into your own drawer of extra hair was to borrow a little of that glamour, that freedom to remake yourself at will, to be one woman today and another tomorrow simply by choosing a different piece from the shelf. You settle the wig one last time, easing a stray edge into place, and you look at the full glossy head of hair in the mirror, untroubled and perfect and ready for anything. It took only minutes, and it will hold through wind and rain and the whole long day, and your own hair rests peacefully beneath. A little like magic, you think again, and a little like cheating, and entirely gloriously convenient, and you step out into the day with your borrowed loveliness held high. Here is a texture the whole decade would remember by feel alone. You unscrew the lid of the little tub, and there it is, the setting gel, that cool green jelly with its strange, wobbling, slightly alarming consistency. You scoop out a fingerful and work it through damp hair before winding the rollers, coaxing the strands into obedience. It smells faintly of something clean and chemical, and it dries stiff and crackling, and it holds a curl like nothing else on the shelf. You wash your hands, win the last roller, and settle in to wait. The tub sat on the edge of the sink in 1,000 bathrooms, that unmistakable green jelly that every woman and girl of the decade knew by sight and by feel. There was something almost comical about it, the way it wobbled and jiggled when you tilted the tub, the strange bright green of it, the odd slippery coolness against your fingers. It looked less like a beauty product than like something from a child's science kit, and yet it was among the most faithful tools a woman owned, the secret behind many a lasting curl. You scooped out a fingerful, cool and slick and quivering, and worked it through your damp hair, distributing it evenly from the roots to the ends. It coated each strand in a thin invisible film, and you could feel the hair grow slightly heavier, slightly more manageable as the gel took hold. Then, section by section, you wound the hair onto the rollers, and the gel did its quiet work, holding each coil firmly in place, promising that when the hair dried it would keep exactly the shape you'd given it. The smell was faint but distinctive, clean and a little chemical, the smell of the whole setting ritual, and it drifted through the bathroom as you worked. Your hands grew slightly tacky with the stuff, and you rinsed them when the last roller was wound, watching the green slip away down the drain. And then came the waiting, the long patient hours beneath the dryer or through the night, while the gel and the rollers together transformed your limp, damp hair into something set and curled and full. When at last the hair was dry, you understood the gel's peculiar power. It dried stiff, almost crackling, holding the curl with a firmness no water alone could ever manage. You brushed it out, and the stiffness softened into fullness, and the curl held and held, lasting through the day and often through the next, faithful and strong. There was nothing else on the shelf quite like it, nothing that gripped a set so firmly, and so the green tub earned its permanent place beside the sink, refilled again and again as it emptied. There was a homely, everyday quality to it that made it beloved. It was not glamorous, this wobbling green jelly, not the sort of thing the magazines made beautiful with soft lighting and elegant models. It was practical and faithful and a little bit funny, a working tool of a working beauty routine, known and used by nearly everyone, girls setting their hair for a dance and mothers setting theirs for church and grandmothers keeping their curls crisp through the week. You think of how a single texture, a single smell, can carry a whole era in it, so that anyone who lived through those years need only picture that green jelly wobbling in its tub to be carried straight back. It is the small, ordinary things that hold memory most stubbornly. The everyday tools and textures that no one thought to treasure at the time precisely because they were everywhere. Unremarkable, simply part of how things were done. You wind the last roller and screw the lid back onto the tub and set it in its place beside the sink, and you settle in to wait for the set to take. Your hands are clean now, the faint, clean chemical smell still hanging in the air, your hair wound and gelled and ready to dry into lasting curls. It is not glamorous work, this, but it is faithful work, and the green tub has never once let you down, and there is a quiet comfort in that, in the reliable everyday magic of it. Let us step outside now, into the backyard, where a different kind of beauty ritual is underway. The fashion is for a deep golden tan, and to hasten it you have mixed your own concoction, baby oil poured together with a few drops of iodine, slicked generously over sun-warmed skin. Beside you lies a folded reflector, angled to catch every ray. You stretch out on the towel, close your eyes against the brightness, and bask, turning slowly like something on a spit, chasing a glow that felt at the time entirely worth it. The tan was everything in those bright warm years, a sign of leisure and health and easy living, the mark of a woman who had time to lie in the sun. The pale porcelain skin so prized upon the face was one thing, a careful indoor beauty, but the body was another matter entirely, and there the fashion ran the opposite way, toward a deep and golden brown. And so you gave yourself over to the sun whenever it shone, chasing that glow with a devotion that a later, more cautious age would find hard to fathom. The concoction was your own, mixed in the kitchen from whatever the magazines and the neighbours recommended, and the great favourite was baby oil laced with a few drops of iodine. The oil, they said, would help you brown faster, and the iodine would lend the tan a richer, more golden colour, and so you poured them together and slicked the mixture generously over every inch of exposed skin until you gleamed and glistened in the light. It smelled of the oil, faintly sweet, and your skin shone slick and ready to catch the sun. Beside you lay the reflector, a folded panel angled just so to bounce the light up onto your face and throat, catching every possible ray and doubling its power. You arranged yourself on the towel with the care of a woman settling in for serious work, for that is what it was, this basking, a task pursued with patience and dedication over long, warm hours. You closed your eyes against the brightness and felt the heat settle over you, and you turned yourself slowly, faithfully, so that no part might brown more than another. The hours passed in a warm golden haze. You dozed a little, and shifted, and turned, and slicked on more of the oil when the first coat baked away, and rose now and then to check your progress in a mirror or against the pale strapline of your bathing suit. The sun beat down, and your skin grew warm and then hot, and you gloried in it, in the deep brown you could feel yourself becoming, in the golden glow that was surely slowly arriving. There was a whole cheerful culture to it. The sunbathing, the backyards and the beaches full of women stretched out on their towels, gleaming with oil, chasing the same golden goal together. You compared your progress with your friends, admired one another's tans, traded recipes for the perfect basking oil, and burned, often, and peeled, and simply went back out to try again. The sting of a burn was accepted almost cheerfully, a small price on the road to that coveted brown. It is impossible now to picture those sun-drenched afternoons without a certain wince, knowing what a later age would learn about the sun and the harm it could do. The baby oil and the iodine, the reflectors, the long unprotected hours, the burns shrugged off and repeated. All of it would come to seem, in time, like a kind of innocent recklessness, a beauty pursued in cheerful ignorance of its cost. But no one knew that then, or if they knew it, they did not heed it, and the sun was simply a friend and a beautifier, free for the taking. You stretch out a little longer on the warm towel, turning your face to the light, chasing that last bit of glow, and for now there is only the heat and the brightness, and the sweet smell of the oil, and the drowsy pleasure of a warm afternoon. It felt at the time entirely worth it, this basking, this golden chase, and so you gave yourself to it gladly, one warm, slow afternoon after another, turning like something on a spit beneath the generous and uncomplicated sun. It is late evening again, and the day must be gently wiped away. You reach for the jar of cold cream, that thick and faintly floral white balm, and you smooth it over your face in slow circular strokes. The makeup loosens and lifts, the colour of the day rising to the surface, and then you wipe it all clean with a soft tissue, revealing the plain, tired, honest face beneath. It is the most soothing part of the whole routine, this quiet undoing, this small nightly promise that tomorrow you will simply begin again. The jar sat on the vanity or the edge of the sink, that great familiar tub of thick white cream, its faint floral scent released the moment you unscrewed the lid. It was among the most trusted things a woman owned, this cold cream, faithful and cheap and endlessly useful, the great remover of the day's painted face. You dipped 2 fingers into it, cool and thick and yielding, and carried a generous dab to your cheeks, and began. The smoothing on was the loveliest part, the slow circular strokes working the cream over every inch of your face, the forehead and the cheeks and the nose and the chin. As you worked, the cream softened and loosened the makeup you'd so carefully applied that morning, dissolving the foundation, lifting the rouge and the shadow and the pale lipstick so that the whole painted face of the day began to loosen its hold and rise to the surface. You could feel it happening beneath your fingertips, the day coming undone, the mask beginning to slip. Then came the wiping away, with a soft tissue or a clean cloth, drawn gently across the skin to lift the cream and the melted makeup together. And here was the small daily reckoning, for onto the tissue came all the colour of the day, the tan of the foundation, the pink of the rouge, the blue of the shadow, all of it wiped away in dark and colourful streaks, until the tissue was quite ruined and your face was clean. It was faintly startling always to see the whole day's painting come off onto a bit of tissue, to be reminded how much of your face had been a thing applied, and beneath it all, revealed at last, the plain honest face you were born with, tired now from the long day, bare and uncoloured and entirely your own. There was a vulnerability in that unveiling, in meeting your own true face in the mirror after a day spent behind the painted one, and there was a tenderness in it too. This was the face no one else would see, the private face, the real one, and there was something quietly moving in, tending to it gently at the close of the day. It was the most soothing part of the whole long routine, this undoing, this wiping away. The morning's beauty work was all effort and hope and anticipation, the building of a face to meet the world. But the evening's was different, gentler, a letting go, a setting down of the day's performance. As the colour came away and the bare face emerged, you felt the day itself lift a little from your shoulders, the smiles and the errands and the small labours all wiped clean along with the makeup. There was a promise folded into it too, a small nightly reassurance. Whatever the day had been, however it had gone, it was ending now, being wiped gently away, and tomorrow you would simply begin again, would sit at this same mirror and build a fresh new face for a fresh new day. The cold cream undid not only the makeup, but, in its small way, the day itself, granting you each night a clean slate, a fresh start, a face returned to its honest beginning. You wipe away the last of it and look at your bare, tired, honest face in the glass, and you feel that quiet nightly peace settle over you. The colour is gone, the day is set down. Your true face, plain and weary and wholly your own, looks back at you in the lamplight, and there is a gentleness in the moment, a small tender closing of the day, this quiet ceremony of wiping it all away and readying yourself once more for rest. Let us wander into the kitchen, where half of your beauty cabinet secretly lives. When the budget is tight, or the magazine has printed a tempting new tip, you make your treatments yourself. A beaten egg worked through the hair for shine. A spoonful of mayonnaise smoothed on for softness. Perhaps a slice of cucumber laid over each eye, or a dab of something from the pantry pressed onto the skin. You sit at the table, hair wrapped in a towel, feeling faintly ridiculous and thoroughly hopeful, waiting for kitchen chemistry to work its gentle wonders. The kitchen was a beauty parlour in disguise, its cupboards and its icebox stocked with as many remedies as the drugstore ever offered, and a great deal cheaper besides. Every woman knew a handful of these tricks, passed down from her mother, or traded across the fence with a neighbour, or clipped from the pages of a magazine, and she reached for them when money was short or when a new tip promised some small wonder. There was a thrift in it, and a resourcefulness, and a pleasant sense of making do with what was already at hand. The egg was a great favourite for the hair, beaten in a bowl and worked through from root to tip, left to sit a while and then rinsed away, and it left the hair, they swore, glossy and full of shine. The mayonnaise did much the same, a spoonful smoothed through and left to work its softening magic, and though it smelled a little strange and had to be rinsed thoroughly away, the hair came out soft and conditioned and lovely. You learned not to mind the oddness of it, the sitting there with egg or mayonnaise in your hair, because the results were real and the cost was next to nothing. For the face and the eyes there were other kitchen wonders. Cool slices of cucumber laid over the closed eyes to soothe away the puffiness of a poor night's sleep. A dab of this or that from the pantry, pressed onto a blemish or smoothed over the skin, following whatever the latest magazine had recommended. Oatmeal perhaps, or honey, or the juice of a lemon, each with its promised virtue, each tried hopefully in turn. The kitchen offered up its humble ingredients to the cause of beauty, and you accepted them gratefully. There was something faintly ridiculous about it all, and you knew it. Sitting there at the kitchen table with your hair wrapped in a towel and egg dripping down your neck, or reclining with cucumber slices balanced over your eyes, you could not help but laugh at yourself a little, at the picture you made. But you did it anyway, faithfully and hopefully, because the tips came recommended and the ingredients cost almost nothing, and there was always the chance, the lovely hopeful chance, that this one might truly work. And often enough, they did work, or seemed to, well enough to keep the tradition alive. The egg did lend a shine, the mayonnaise did soften, the cucumber did soothe, and whether it was the ingredients themselves or simply the ritual of tending to yourself, you rose from the kitchen table feeling refreshed and cared for and a little more beautiful. That feeling was worth as much perhaps as any measurable result, the simple sense of having done something kind for yourself out of the humble contents of your own cupboard. There was a homeliness to this kind of beauty that the bright packaged products of the drugstore could never quite match. It bound the beauty routine to the everyday life of the household, to the kitchen and the icebox and the ordinary business of feeding a family, so that the same egg that went into the morning's breakfast might go, another day, into the shine of your hair. Beauty was not something apart from daily life, but woven right through it, made from the same simple stuff. You sit at the table a while longer, hair wrapped in its towel, waiting for the kitchen chemistry to do its gentle work, feeling faintly ridiculous and thoroughly hopeful all at once. The house is quiet around you, the familiar smells of the kitchen mingling with the odd tang of egg or mayonnaise, and there is a homely contentment in the moment, in this small, thrifty act of self-care made from what the cupboard had on hand. Kitchen wonders, you think with a smile, and you settle in to wait for them. Beauty in this decade did not stop at the face, and so let us speak of the foundation garments. Beneath the smart dress and the tidy blouse lies the girdle, that firm and unforgiving architecture of elastic and seams, designed to smooth every line into a single sleek silhouette. You step into it, tug it upward, and adjust yourself with a small, resigned exhale. It pinches, it holds, it reshapes the whole day around itself. But the dress hangs just so, and the mirror approves, and you square your shoulders and decide you can manage a few hours of quiet suffering. The girdle was simply part of getting dressed, as unquestioned as the shoes on your feet or the slip beneath your dress. A woman did not go out into the world without it. Not a proper woman, not one who cared how her clothes hung and how her figure read. It was the invisible foundation upon which the whole smart outfit was built, the thing that turned a soft and ordinary body into the smooth, controlled, sculpted silhouette the fashions demanded, and so you wore it faithfully, whatever it cost you in comfort. The putting on of it was a small daily struggle in itself. You stepped into it and drew it up over your hips, and then came the real work, the tugging and the wriggling and the settling of the firm elastic into place, easing yourself into its grip inch by inch. It fought you a little every time, and you fought back, until at last it sat where it belonged, holding you firm from the waist to the thigh. You let out a small, resigned breath, the exhale of a woman who knew she would not draw a truly full one again until evening, and then the sensation of wearing it, which you never quite grew used to no matter how many years you had done so. The firm, even pressure all around, the sense of being held and shaped and contained, the slight difficulty of bending or sitting or reaching too far. It pinched at the edges. It reshaped the way you moved, the way you sat, the way you carried yourself through the whole long day, so that even your posture became a thing the girdle decided rather than you. But oh, the silhouette it gave you. That was the point of it all, the reason a woman endured the pinch and the pressure without complaint. With the girdle in place, the smart dress hung exactly as it was meant to, smooth and sleek over a figure with no soft line or gentle bulge to interrupt it. The waist looked trim, the hips looked neat. The whole shape of you read clean and controlled and elegant, just as the fashion plates in the shop windows promised. You turned before the mirror and saw the smooth, sleek line of yourself, and you understood the bargain and accepted it. There was a discipline in it, a kind of daily self-mastery that the whole age took quietly for granted. A woman held herself in, literally and otherwise, presenting to the world a figure smoothed and controlled and correct. And the girdle was both the tool and the symbol of that holding in. You did not question it any more than you questioned the need to be polite or well-groomed. It was simply what was expected, what a woman did, the price of looking the way a woman was meant to look. You think now of how much of a woman's day was shaped by that firm elastic grip, how she moved and sat and breathed within its bounds from morning until night, and how gladly at the end of the day she was released from it. For the taking off was as memorable as the putting on, that moment in the evening when you finally peeled it away and felt your body spring free and drew, at last, a full deep breath, and understood all over again exactly what you'd been enduring all day long. But that release was still hours away, for now you tug it into its final place and square your shoulders and check the smooth, sleek line of yourself in the glass one more time. The dress hangs just so. The mirror approves, and you decide, as you decide every morning, that a few hours of quiet suffering is a fair enough price for looking exactly the way you wish to look, and you step out into the day, held firmly and smoothly and correctly together. Here is a detail that spoke of a woman who had everything under control. The truly polished look of the era meant that your lipstick and your nail polish agreed with one another completely. The same coral, the same rose, the same confident red on both the mouth and the fingertips. So you paint your nails to match, waving your hands in the air to dry them, careful not to smudge. When at last the two shades sing together, there is a quiet satisfaction in it, the small private pleasure of a woman whose details all line up. It was a rule of good grooming, this matching, understood by every well-turned-out woman of the day. The mouth and the fingertips were the two boldest strokes of colour a woman wore, and they were meant to agree, to echo one another, to prove that nothing about her appearance had been left to chance. A red mouth above coral nails would have looked careless, unfinished, the mark of a woman who had not quite thought it through. And so you thought it through, always choosing your two colours as a pair. The choosing was a pleasure in itself. You would consider the dress you meant to wear, and the occasion, and the mood of the day, and then select the shade that suited, the soft rose or the cheerful coral or the confident classic red. And having chosen, you would paint both the lips and the nails in that single colour, so that they matched perfectly. The same bold stroke repeated at the mouth and at the hands, a small deliberate harmony running through your whole appearance. The painting of the nails was a patient business. You spread your fingers on the table and drew the little brush along each nail in careful strokes, the colour going on wet and glossy and bright. And then you did the same to the other hand, and then, most likely, a second coat over both for depth and richness. And then the waiting, the long careful minutes of holding your hands still, waving them gently in the air to hurry the drying, taking exquisite care not to smudge a single nail against anything. For a smudged nail meant beginning that finger all over again. It required a certain stillness, a certain patience, this drying. A pause in the middle of a busy morning when you could do nothing at all but wait for the polish to set. You learned to fill the time, to sit and think, or to blow gently on your fingertips, or simply to admire the growing gloss of the colour as it dried. It was a small enforced rest in its way, a few quiet minutes claimed in the name of beauty, and there was something almost pleasant in the enforced idleness of it. And when at last both were done, the nails dry and glossy and the lips freshly painted in the very same shade, there was a real quiet satisfaction in the sight of them together. You would hold your hand up beside your face in the mirror and see the two colours sing, the mouth and the fingertips in perfect agreement, and you would feel that small private pleasure of a job done properly, of details that lined up, of a woman entirely in command of her own presentation. It spoke of something, that matching, beyond mere prettiness. It spoke of care, of attention, of a certain pride in doing things correctly and completely. A woman whose lipstick and nail polish matched was a woman who had her life in order, or wished at least to appear so. A woman who paid attention to the small things and let nothing slip. It was a quiet declaration of competence, worn at the mouth and the fingertips for all the world to read. You wave your hands a final time to be sure they are dry, and you hold them up beside your freshly painted mouth, and you see the two shades agree at last, singing together in perfect harmony. And you feel that small satisfaction settle in you, the pleasure of a woman whose details line up, whose colours match, whose whole careful appearance declares her a person of order and attention. It is a small thing, this matching, but it is the small things you have always believed that make the whole. Let us return to that great humble jar found in every household. Long before glosses came in their own gleaming tubes, a woman in the know reached for the petroleum jelly. A dab smoothed over the lids gave the eyes a wet, dewy, modern shine. A touch pressed onto the lips left them soft and glistening. A little smoothed over the brows kept every hair in place. It was cheap, it was everywhere, and it did a dozen quiet jobs at once, and you kept your little jar close, trusting it the way you trusted an old friend. The jar of petroleum jelly sat in every medicine cabinet in the land, put there for chapped hands and small scrapes and 100 household purposes. But the clever woman knew it held a secret second life as a beauty tool. It cost next to nothing, it never ran out, it never spoiled, and it turned its hand to a dozen small tasks that a whole drawer of expensive products might otherwise have been bought to do. And so you kept your little jar close at your vanity, not in the medicine cabinet at all, and reached for it daily. Upon the eyelids it worked a particular magic that suited the mod fashion perfectly. A small dab smoothed over the lid gave the eye a wet, dewy, glistening shine, catching the light with every blink, lending a modern gleam that no powder shadow could match. It was the look of the moment, that dewy eye, and here it was, achieved for almost nothing from the humblest jar in the house. A little touch of gloss that made your eyes look freshly and fashionably lit. Upon the lips it did much the same, a touch pressed on over your lipstick or worn alone, leaving the mouth soft and glistening and kissable, long before anyone thought to sell such shine in its own dedicated tube. And upon the brows it worked yet another quiet task, a little smooth through the hairs to keep them lying neat and in place all day, glossy and groomed. The arches you'd laboured over held faithfully just so. It could soften a rough elbow or a dry heel, tame a flyaway strand of hair, add a sheen to the cheekbones, ease off a stubborn bit of makeup at the day's end. There seemed no end to the small jobs it would do, and you discovered new ones all the time, or traded them with your friends, each of you keeping your own little jar and each of you swearing by some particular use of it. It was the great quiet workhorse of the beauty routine, faithful and cheap and endlessly obliging. There was a satisfying thrift in it, a pleasure in getting so much from so little, that suited a woman who watched her pennies. Why buy a special gloss for the lids and another for the lips and a third for the brows, when a single humble jar would do all three and a dozen things besides and last for months and cost a fraction of any one of them? It was the resourceful woman's secret, this reaching for the everyday jar to do the work of the fancy product, and you took a quiet pride in knowing it. It is the kind of small clever trick that gets passed quietly from woman to woman and never written grandly anywhere, the sort of humble wisdom that lives in the doing rather than the telling. Your mother knew it, and her mother before her, and you learned it at the vanity watching them, and one day you would pass it along in turn, this trusty old jar and its dozen quiet uses, a little inheritance of everyday cleverness. You dip a fingertip into the jar now and smooth the smallest touch over your lids, and watch your eyes take on that dewy modern gleam, catching the light as you blink. It cost you nothing, and it did in a moment what an expensive product might have promised, and you feel that small satisfaction of the woman in the know. You screw the lid back on and set the little jar in its place at your vanity, close at hand, trusted and faithful, an old friend you would not think of doing without. It is bedtime once more, and there is one last piece of work to do. All that careful setting, all those rollers and all that spray must be protected through the long hours of sleep. So you tie a soft scarf around your head, or slip on a gauzy sleeping bonnet, or draw a fine hairnet gently over the whole arrangement. You catch your reflection, wrapped and bundled and faintly comical, and you smile to yourself. It is not glamorous, this final step, but it is the price of waking with your curls intact, and you pay it gladly. The whole point of it was preservation, the guarding of a set that had cost real time and effort against the tossings and turnings of the night. A woman who had spent an hour winding rollers, or sat beneath the dryer at the salon, or set her curls with gel and patience, was not about to let a night's sleep undo it all, crushing the curl flat against the pillow and leaving her to begin again in the morning. And so came the nightly bundling, the careful wrapping up of the hair to hold its shape until dawn. There were several ways to do it, and every woman had her preference. Some tied a soft silk scarf about the head, knotted just so, smoothing it over the set to hold everything in place. Some slipped on a gauzy sleeping bonnet, a little cap of net or chiffon gathered with elastic made for exactly this purpose. And some drew a fine hairnet gently over the whole arrangement, the net catching and holding every curl, invisible almost but for the faint web of it. Whichever you chose, the aim was the same, to keep the night from ruining the day's careful work. You settled the covering into place with practised hands, easing it over the curls or the rollers without crushing them, tucking the edges, making sure the whole set was safely contained. And then you caught sight of yourself in the mirror, wrapped and bundled and bonneted, and you could not help but smile, for there was nothing glamorous about the picture you made. Whatever loveliness the morning would bring, the night version of a well-set woman was a comical sight indeed, swaddled about the head like a parcel done up for the post. But you had long since made your peace with that. Beauty, you knew well by now, was mostly a private labour performed out of sight, and the glamorous result the world admired rested upon a great many unglamorous hours it never saw. The bundled head at bedtime was simply one more of those hidden efforts, one more small unlovely task performed in service of the lovely public face. No one would ever see you like this but yourself, and perhaps your husband, who had long since stopped remarking on it. There was a comfort in the ritual too, a sense of the day being properly closed and the next day properly prepared for. With your hair safely bundled, you could lie down and sleep without worry, knowing your set was protected, knowing you would wake with your curls intact, and your morning made that much easier. It was one less thing to fret over, one bit of tomorrow already taken care of tonight, and there was a quiet satisfaction in that small foresight. It bound your nights to your mornings, this wrapping up, made the whole business of beauty a thing that ran clear around the clock, sleeping and waking alike. A woman's care of her appearance did not stop when she lay down. It simply changed its form, becoming this gentle nightly guarding of the hair, this patient protection of the day's work through the dark hours. Beauty was not an act, but a discipline, continuous and faithful, and the bedtime bonnet was as much a part of it as the morning spray. You give the scarf or the bonnet or the net one last small adjustment, making sure it will hold through the night, and you catch your bundled reflection once more and smile at the comical sight of yourself. It is not glamorous, this final step of the long day's routine, but you pay its small price gladly, knowing what it buys you, and you switch off the lamp and lie carefully down, your set protected, your morning eased, your curls safe until the light. Let us end our long day of beauty at the bathroom sink wrapped in warmth. You fill the basin with water as hot as you can bear, drape a towel over your head, and lean in close to let the steam rise up and open your skin. Perhaps you have added a few dried herbs or a drop of something fragrant following the advice of a magazine you have read 3 times over. You breathe it in, eyes closed, cheeks glowing, and for a few soft minutes there is nothing to do but sit still in the heat and simply, quietly take care of yourself. It was the gentlest of the beauty rituals, this facial steaming, requiring nothing more than the sink and a towel and a little hot water, and yet it felt like a small luxury all the same, a home version of the treatments the fine ladies enjoyed at their salons. You had read of it in your magazines, of how the steam would open the pores and cleanse the skin and leave the complexion fresh and glowing, and you had folded the advice away to try on a quiet evening, and now here you were, bent over the steaming basin with a towel draped over your head like a small private tent. The heat rose up to meet your face, warm and damp and enveloping, and you leaned in close and let it wrap around you. It was almost too hot at first, and you drew back a little and then eased in again, finding the distance you could bear, letting the steam settle over your skin. You could feel your face growing warm and moist, your pores opening, the tightness of the day easing away in the gentle heat, and you closed your eyes and simply breathed. Perhaps you'd added something to the water, a few dried herbs from the cupboard, or a drop of something fragrant, chamomile or mint or lavender, following faithfully the advice of a magazine you'd read 3 times over until its pages went soft. The scent rose with the steam, filling the little tented space around your face, and you breathed it in deep and slow, and it seemed to carry the day's weariness away with it, out and up and gone into the warm, damp air. There was nothing to do in those few soft minutes but sit still and breathe and be warm, and that in itself was the great gift of it. The whole long day had been labour, one careful task after another, the setting and the painting and the smoothing and the holding in, all of it effort and attention and hope. And now, at the last, came this, a ritual that asked nothing of you but stillness, that gave without demanding, that simply held you in its warmth and let you rest. Your cheeks glowed, your skin drank in the moisture, your breathing slowed and deepened, and somewhere in the warm quiet of it, the boundary between beauty and rest, so firmly separate all day long, began at last to blur and soften. This was care of the skin, yes, a treatment with a purpose, but it was also simply care, the tending of a tired woman to her own tired self at the close of a long day, and the two had become, in the steam, one and the same thing. It is a truth easy to lose, in a routine so full of labour and discipline and quiet suffering, that beauty at its best is also a form of tenderness toward oneself, a way of saying, in the language of cold cream and hot water and fragrant steam, that one is worth the trouble, worth the time, worth the care. All day the rituals had served the public face, the version the world would see. This last one served only you, the private woman bent over the sink in the lamplight, and there was something quietly healing in that. You lift your face at last from the steam, cheeks flushed and glowing, skin soft and clean and warm, and you pat it gently dry and stand a moment in the quiet bathroom. The long day of beauty is done. Every ritual is finished, every task complete, and there is nothing left now but to turn out the light and go softly to your rest. And as you do, you carry with you the warmth of that last gentle ceremony, the reminder folded into the steam that to care for oneself is not vanity at all, but a small and faithful kindness offered quietly, night after night, to the tired and hopeful woman in the glass. And so our long day at the mirror comes gently to its close. We have moved together through all its quiet hours, from the first teasing of the beehive up toward the ceiling to the last soft rise of steam over a warm basin at the sink. We watch the rollers go in and come out, breathe the sweet sharp cloud of the hairspray, sat patiently through the sting of the home permanent, and painted on our faces layer by careful layer the pale frosted mouth and the sky blue lids and the small dark beauty mark placed just so. It was labour, all of it, and it was hope, and it was a kind of love, offered daily to the woman in the glass. Think, for a moment, of the women who really lived these mornings. They rose early and sat before their mirrors, and gave over hour after hour to a beauty that asked so much of them, and they did it with patience and with pride, and often with a friend or a sister or a mother close beside them, winding rollers and trading tips across the years. They did not think of it as history. They were simply getting ready, simply caring for themselves and one another, simply going quietly about the business of a life. If you carry anything forward from their world into your own, let it be this: the willingness to slow down, to make a small ceremony of an ordinary moment, to treat yourself as someone worth a little care and a little time. So now let the day fall away. Let your shoulders soften and your breathing slow. The mirror is dark, the rollers are set, the house is quiet at last. Rest easy tonight and know that you are cared for.